Hi guys, so Miss Holcomb here. So I'm going to show you today how to do a water cycle in the bag. So the first step of any activity, you want to get all of your materials together first. So what you're going to need for this is a Ziploc bag, quart size, so it's this medium size bag, a black permanent marker, your food coloring, water. Okay, you don't want more than a cup, but at least a half a cup. Some strong clear tape or whatever tape you have handy to tape it into the window with lots of light so that you can watch your water cycle through itself. Okay, so the first step in making this water cycle bag is you want to make sure that you put it down on something flat. I'm putting it on our whiteboard so that you can see it easier and follow along easier. But you can put it down on your tabletop, your desktop, just something flat so that you can write on it easily. Okay, now we're going to label our water cycle. So we want to draw pictures on it, and we want to make sure that we're labeling each step. So you can design your bag however you want, but you want to make sure that you are covering your evaporation, condensation, precipitation, maybe runoff, groundwater, but you have to have all the steps. So I always start in the upper left-hand corner. I draw my sun because the sun is what causes the water cycle to operate. Without it, it wouldn't happen because the water cycle needs the heat from the sun. So here's our sun up here in the corner, and it's going to drive our water cycle. We also know that we need water, because what's the water cycle without water, right? Okay, so here's our water. Now I always like to draw like a little hill or something to represent our land. So here we have our land. Here we have our water. I feel like we're missing something. Oh, condensation requires clouds. So we're going to draw a nice pretty cloud up here to represent our condensation. Okay, so here's our cloud for our condensation. Okay, now we're going to label our steps. So the first thing we have is the sun is heating up the water, which creates evaporation. So we're going to draw an arrow up from the water, and we're going to label it evaporation. Okay, now after it evaporates, it condensates in the air to create clouds. So we're going to have our condensation up here where our cloud is. Okay, now once the clouds become too heavy, we get precipitation. So we know that there's going to be like rain or snow or hail. Okay, so whatever kind of condensation you want, or you can do like I did and just draw an example of 2 or 3 different kinds. But we know that this is where our precipitation comes in. Okay, so we want to label our precipitation coming down from our cloud. Now once it's precipitated, now it's got to collect in our water. This is where our collection takes place, down here at the bottom. Now the extra steps that you can add, and it's totally up to you, you can add where we have the runoff coming down the land and running off into our collection. Or you can draw an arrow down through the land, and you can put a little box down here, because we know that this is where our groundwater collects, is underneath the land. Okay, so now we've labeled our bag, we've labeled our water cycle, we've drawn our pretty little pictures, and now we're ready to put in our food coloring so that we can watch this as it happens. So remember I said a half a cup to a cup of water. So I have my measurer. We're just going to measure about a half a cup of water, which is about half of this. Okay, so now we need to open our bag. And be very careful if you're at home, if you need help with it, get a parent, a sibling, someone to hold your bag for you if you need to. And very, very carefully pour the water into the bag because you don't want to make a big mess. Now this next part you might need help with, so if you need help, make sure you have someone to hold your bag, and be very careful with your food coloring because it will make a mess like Miss Hawkins got it all over her fingers. So we're going to very carefully drop 2 or 3 drops. You don't want too much, so just 2 or 3 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Just enough to really color up the water good. Once the water is colored, you want to get as much of the air out of the bag as you can. And zip it closed. So I always zip mine partially closed first and then squeeze the rest of the air out of the bag and close it. And there is see, I got just enough water to go to the top of our water line. Then you're gonna take your tape and go to a window that has lots of light during the day. And you're just gonna tape it up in the window. And you wanna make sure you tape it so that you can see your pictures and you can see the labels and that it hangs. You wanna make sure that you use some really good tape. If that means you get a piece of Scotch tape like I have here to hold it to the board, or maybe a small piece of duct tape, something like that that'll hold it to the glass really well. So you want to make sure that you get it really good and tight to the window. And then as the water heats, you'll actually be able to watch the evaporation take place. It'll go over into the cloud area over here and start sticking to the bag. And then you'll get to watch the precipitation come back down. So you'll be able to watch the water cycle repeat over and over and over again. And it's a really cool thing to have hanging up, and it's something you can do with your family, your siblings, and you can watch it and monitor it, and you can actually see the water cycle take place. Because we don't see it take place every day in the real world, but you can watch it take place inside this bag. So if you have any questions or you need help, be sure to ask your teacher, ask a parent for help, get supervision if you need it with putting the water in and the food coloring, and have a great time doing this because it'll be a really fun activity. Bye guys.